In the beginning of the Boston bombing story, Alex Jones came out with a conspiracy theory, of course. It's a false flag operation, and the government was going to use this to blame the Tea Party. Now, it turns out there was a problem with that theory because the government didn't say the Tea Party did it. In fact, they found two Muslim brothers who had done it. And Alex Jones went, well, of course they did. Why, of course? It looks like you were totally wrong. No, once they found out I was on to them, then they switched it into a double false flag and made them Muslim. And now they're going to come back and connect it to me so they can go back to the Tea Party angle. What? And then the lizard people take off their masks and they go, whoa. So the Associated Press pointed out that, in fact, the older Tsarnaev brother, Tamerlan, had visited Infowars, Alex Jones' website. And Alex was beside himself. Aha! Quote, he could be a listener. It could be true. I've talked to the family and most of them are listeners. Okay, all right, that seems close. That makes sense. So he's a listener, it happens, and it's not Alex's fault. But then, of course, here comes the twist on the conspiracy. He said, quote, I've seen this before, the federal government trying to connect me to tragedies. That's the media and the government's own conspiracy theories. But wait a minute, Alex, you just said that he could have been a listener and that you talked to his family and they're listeners. So how could it be a government conspiracy against you to connect them if you think he is a listener? Did you plant a conspiracy? Is Alex Jones the conspiracy himself? All right. He then goes on to say, well, look, this is, quote, one of a number of plots hatched by the FBI. Well, of course, the FBI is constantly planting bombs and killing American people. Who doesn't know that? Obviously, that's what the lizard people do. And then, look, you might think, okay, some of you love the conspiracies, and I know some people listen to Alex and they think like, oh no, he's got this thing figured out. And he smatters in a tiny bit of truth like, hey, the government does intrude on your privacy. And from time to time, there are conspiracies like JFK was not likely to have been shot by one person, right? And then he stretches that to, well, obviously the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are going to take over the whole world and kill 90% of the population. He said that on our show. Okay, so now he's about to jump the shark if you think he hasn't yet. You know how the younger brother, Johar, got shot in the throat and went out the back of his neck? No. Quote, that's that special throat surgery they did. The FBI did throat surgery on him to do what? To put a fake throat in there that will now say things that the real throat couldn't say? I don't know if you know how the human body works, but it's not like your throat can now say things that you don't want it to say if the FBI does a special throat surgery. This is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Let's keep it real, okay? And Alex says, my show exposes that most of the events we've seen have been provocateured. Indeed. No, they haven't. And there are incredibly legitimate things to criticize the government about, and they have run roughshod over our civil liberties. But they didn't do special throat surgery on Johar Tsarnaev, and they didn't get Tamerlan Tsarnaev to listen to Alex Jones' show so that they could blame the Tea Party, but use Muslims to blame them. Please use your common sense and logic and reason. Of course that didn't happen. But you can't get through to some people, no matter what. Now, do you know that there's now a free Johar movement? And apparently his friends used to call him Johar, and so people are putting like tattoos, I don't know if it's permanent tattoos, but certainly marks on their arms, etc., getting t-shirts saying free Johar. There's a hashtag free Johar out there. Here's one supporter. He's fucking innocent. If you were guilty, it wouldn't take this long to fucking prove it, and it would actually be evidence. Okay, except there's overwhelming evidence. For like his confession. Okay, that's one piece of evidence that seems to be pretty relevant. Of course, they did the special throat surgery. I forgot about that, so that it was a fake. What are you guys doing? And apparently one of the things is that a lot of girls are doing this, and they think that he's cute. Yeah, that cute guy that murdered that 8-year-old boy and other 2 women and the officer and shredded the bodies and tore the limbs off of all those people. What a cute guy. Look, it doesn't matter. You're girl, boy, it doesn't matter, man. You go supporting this Free Jihad movement, you're insane. You're a lunatic. There's another guy who's a supporter says, oh, there's proof that half the victims are fake. Don't go to the victims and tell them they're fake, you idiot. I mean, how sick and offensive are you? And of course, in every one of these conspiracies, always there ought to be more blood. And you see, if the plane had exploded in midair, then the wing would have ended up somewhere in Ohio and not in Pennsylvania. And if there was the heat and then the beams, and then there would have been more blood. And then if you look at the footage, you see that there's actually National Guard there. Yeah, this is the Boston Marathon. They have some National Guard there. Man, this is deeply offensive and ridiculous stuff. Don't get into this nonsense rabbit hole. And by the way, the other thing it does is it delegitimizes real criticism of the government. God, there's so much incredible criticism to make of the government, and anytime you go down this rabbit hole, they easily dismiss you, as they should, as lunatics. When in reality, we got to protect our civil liberties. This is not the way to do it. Sanity, reason, logic is the way to do it.